This is Mushtaq Memon, Professor Emeritus from Washington State University. Today, I have a pleasure and honor to have our Professor Gbola Adesogan. He is the Professor of Nutrition here at the University of Florida and has a very well accomplished leader here in system of food sciences and food and nutrition. So I will let him explain a little more about his accomplishment. And the one thing which I like to mention very quickly that he has headed the Livestock Innovation Lab funded by USAID for many years. And now he has even much bigger challenges and leadership roles to play. And through his program, I was privileged to go to Cambodia and do some work at the university over there. So welcome, Dr. Adasogan.
Thank you, Dr. Memon.
And I will just request you to please give us some run through on the Livestock Innovation Lab and whatever you have been able to do. And also as you have moved to newer and bigger challenges in food system at the University of Florida, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's an honor, Dr. Memon. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I thank you for your friendship and your partnership. As you mentioned, you did some excellent work in Cambodia, and you're helping to build the capacity of students and faculty there in the area of vet medicine. So we really appreciate your efforts, and you've been a great friend. So in 2015, we were privileged to get a $49 million grant to initiate the Feed the Future Innovation Lab for livestock systems. And this lab is one of just over 20 labs that are managed at US universities across the country. So Feed the Future is the US government's global food security and poverty alleviation initiative, which involves many agencies of the US government, USDA, Department of Defense, but USAID actually takes the lead in implementing a lot of this initiative. And one of the good things about it is that it has passed with very strong bipartisan support in Congress repeatedly since it was first enacted in 2009 in the Obama administration. Now, the Livestock Systems Innovation Lab, which we manage, so I was the director from the inception until last year. I stepped down last year, and now Jeff Dahl, who is a colleague in the department, is the director. We were very privileged to work with excellent professors, researchers, NGOs, private sector partners from several parts of the US and several parts of our target countries. We had and continue to have a mission, and the mission is to improve the nutrition, the incomes, the livelihoods, and the well-being of the vulnerable in Global South Feed the Future countries. These are countries that USAID has identified as having the requisite conditions that are important for partnering, capacity building, research for development. So we had an initial 6 countries, and over time we've worked in probably 11 countries in Africa and Asia. And in each of the countries, we initially went to look for the key stakeholders in the livestock value chain. And we asked them to help us identify the priority problems. And so we talked to academics, we talked to researchers, and finally we came up with a long list. We talked to NGOs, civil society experts, and so on. And they gave us a list of priorities. And we pulled everybody together and asked them to rank them. We then funded research for development projects that piloted solutions to the most pressing, highly prioritized constraints to livestock production and consumption of animal source foods. So Through that process, we have now managed and implemented over 60 research for development projects in different parts of Asia and Africa. The reason why USAID and then the Gates Foundation, so Gates Foundation has given us about $12 million in separate projects since we got the USAID grant. And the reason why two of the major funding agencies chose to invest so heavily in us is because animal source foods are a very important complement to plant foods, particularly for undernourished children, infants, pregnant and nursing women in the global south. Stunting rates are 1 in 3 children under 5 in Africa and South Asia, in sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, Southeast Asia. That's too high when you think of the lifelong consequences of stunting, which is not just impaired growth, but impaired brain development. So we have implemented a range of projects that have tackled improving livestock production by improved feeds. We have imported higher quality, higher yielding, more climate tolerant fodder, forages in particular, from the US, from Brazil into several countries. We have created databases of feeds with 4,000 feeds per country. We have created apps for formulating balanced rations. We have deployed handheld NIR kits that allow one to formulate, to analyze the nutritional value of feeds without needing a fully kitted lab. And these things have had a tremendous impact. In many of the countries, the forages we imported have been validated over several years with agronomic trials, and now they have been approved and released by the government. On the animal health side, we have, in Ethiopia, for instance, we worked to identify the causes of young stock mortality in partnership with UC Davis. And I should say that ILRI is our main partner in the overall program. We worked with UC Davis and we identified causes of young stock mortality and mitigation strategies, which were very effective in reducing the problem very drastically. In Nepal, we identified causes of very high prevalence of mastitis in cows, over 60% in cows and buffalo, and were able to reduce the prevalence of mastitis by about 300% in buffalo, and about 100% in cows, buffalo being the main source of milk in some of those countries. We also worked with University of Georgia to develop a manual for preventing various livestock diseases. And that manual was translated into various languages in Ethiopia by FAO. So it's been widely disseminated. In Nepal, our mitigation strategy to reduce mastitis was picked up. We did it in partnership with Heifer International, and they have promoted that for adoption among a lot of the small-scale farmers that they work with. In Nepal as well, we deployed distance platforms for training women in rural villages to become community animal health workers. That was initiated by my colleague here at UF, Connor Mulali, in partnership with Heifer in Nepal. And the women who took these distance learning classes, they were kitted with an iPad and a curriculum. They had a higher pass rate, 24% greater pass rate, than those who went to the government training centers. And part of it was because they could stay at home, look after their children. They didn't have the worry of being separated from their families when they were being trained. So 24% improvement. We have had many projects I can tell you more about, but I'll finish with this one. There was a project my colleague here, Dr. Sarah McCune, led, which involved targeting a tribe called the Mossi in Burkina Faso. And the intention was to address the myth, which was prevalent, that if children eat eggs, they will become thieves when they grow up. And so Sarah and her team with INERA, in all the countries where we worked, we had national partners who were pivotal to everything we did. In Ethiopia, it was the Ethiopian Institute of Agricultural Research. In Burkina, it was INERA. And all these partners have been phenomenal. And Sarah with the INERA team worked with village elders first. So it's key to know the influencers. They help village elders to understand the importance of eggs in the diet. And then they helped ask the village elders to help them identify families that would receive 3 chickens, 3 hens, and buy 1 more, and commit to feeding an egg to an infant a day. And at the end of the 10-month period, these infants went from eating 0 eggs to eating 6 eggs a week. It was phenomenal. It made the national news. It's been published in journals now. And it was transformative. These children, their wasting was statistically reduced. And wasting is linked to child mortality, so that was huge. Women's empowerment was increased because the women, when they saw how well their children were doing just by receiving an egg a day, they chose to defy their husbands who were telling them to sell the eggs. And they chose to continue to feed them to our children. So we're very proud of the accomplishments. Over 4,000 people across the world are using our technologies. Over maybe 14,000 have been trained in different parts of the world. And we've published over 200 manuscripts in partnership with our colleagues at different universities in the US and abroad and research institutes. We've supported over 200 students to get their graduate degrees. But one of the most gratifying aspects is not those academic indicators. It's when you go to Nepal and you meet a woman who was one of the trainees to become a community animal health worker. And she told me that now my income has increased 3 to 4 times. And as a result of that training, I am now able to better take care of my family, my children. And then now I am one of the leaders of an NGO that has 1,500 women. We are passing on the gift. So we're tremendously privileged, honored, and grateful for the opportunity that USAID and the Gates Foundation have given us to do this work. And at University of Florida, as we began to reflect on the work that we had done over the years, we wanted to extend the work beyond livestock. We wanted to continue the important work on livestock, but to extend it. So I stepped down as director. Saskia Hendricks, who was deputy director with me, continued as deputy director. And then Jeff Dahl, who stepped in as director. And I assumed a position as director of the Global Food Systems Institute and associate VP. And in that role, we try and do 2 things. We facilitate interdisciplinary collaboration among faculty from different departments. Then secondly, we support, we solicit, we look for global opportunities to do the type of work we did in the livestock lab. And so we help faculty to put together teams to go after those funding opportunities, and we support their work in developing those types of initiatives. We also support some of the major ongoing projects that have been here at UF. So for instance, Gerrit Hugenboom, he leads a project that is focused on crop modeling. And they've developed models that simulate effects of fertilization, irrigation, climate change for 42 different crops. That model is used in almost 200 countries by about 25,000 people. So very, very significant. We have faculty like Karen Garrett, who's developed a seed systems toolbox for understanding issues with seed systems in the global south, which is a major constraint for quality crop production as well as for forage production. We have faculty who have developed indicators for sustainable fisheries that are now being used across the world. Frank Ash and Jim Anderson. We have faculty who are developing more thermotolerant, climate-resistant rice hybrids like Kevin Bexey. And I could go on and on and on. So we're very privileged to continue the fantastic work that the lab has been doing across the world, but now to reach beyond livestock and include other commodities in trying to partner with friends, with our colleagues in Global South, to move the needle on food security, to reduce not just food insecurity, not just hunger, but hidden hunger, the deficiency of micronutrients and macronutrients, which means that even when a child gets enough calories from rice or yams, pasta or potatoes, they are still very, very undernourished because they are lacking things like vitamin B12, which you only get from animal source foods. So this is what we've been doing. We're very honored, very proud of those we have partnered with, like Dr. Memon here, to accomplish these things across the world. And of course, we would not be able to be successful without these types of partnerships. So we're very grateful to Dr. Memon and to all of our partners that we have worked with, and we look forward to continuing to engage in this space. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adesogan. This is quite an accomplishment. I was not even aware of some of the things you just mentioned. That is, quite an impact, globally that your lab has been able to do it, and now you're going in, bigger scale even at the global level. I have to ask you this question: that, as you know, the political landscape in the United States, and nobody can predict the future. But I keep on looking around, and see that things are changing also in Europe, and obviously United States, where we live, and the biggest donor is United States. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah.
What do you think that may happen?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to give one example, and I don't think you would mind me using this, but our congressman here in Florida, our previous congressman, he's stepped down now, Dr. Ted Yoho, he went into the House with a plan to cut foreign aid. But when he got into the House and began to understand how the work that we do, that USAID does, that USDA FAS does on global food security, he became one of our biggest advocates. He convinced many of fellow congressional representatives on Capitol Hill to jump on board with him. And, every time I would visit on Capitol Hill, I would have a warm reception, and we would have very strong bipartisan support. So this has continued. And so, Senator Marco Rubio has said that the food security efforts that we're doing, food security is national security. And in fact, some of our congressional representatives, they refer to what we do as agricultural diplomacy. And so I'm very convinced that in this next administration, there will be enough people on both sides of the aisle who are saying that this is absolutely important work that needs to continue for several reasons. One is national security, because it helps us to show a very supportive side of the US to countries that need a lot of partnership and support. And those partnerships result in lifelong friendships. And also, it's not just friendships, but if you take South Korea, it was one of the US's major aid recipients in the past. Now it's one of the US's greatest trading partners. And I remember Congressman Yoho would often say, yes, we're going to help these countries to move from aid to trade, from being aid recipients to trading partners. So that's our goal. And I think that's a win-win for everybody. And from that standpoint, I think I'm quite confident that these programs will continue to receive support. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Gbola. This is a wonderful insight, and we wish you well and also the success of the program. And I look forward to again talking to you maybe in the near future to see how your new program is coming along. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much, Dr. Memon. Appreciate the opportunity.